Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my creative space. Today's vlog, we are starting day 1 of Summerween and I'm really excited to get into this readathon. I think I'm going to just loosely be reading horror this week. I don't really have plans to be fulfilling every single prompt, mostly because I just have been in a really weird space with my reading, so I'm just gonna go ahead and let myself mood read. So because I am letting myself mood read, I checked out a few books that have been on my radar from my local library, so I'll let you know the things that I have out currently. The first book that I have is Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. I also have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, Moon of the Crested Snow by Wubshig Rice. I think I might have mispronounced their first name, so I do apologize for that. The Honeys by Ryan Lasala. I have this book by Holly Jackson, The Reappearance of Rachel Price. I think I'm gonna put that on hold because I am buddy reading that with one of my friends, and I think she wants to read that via ebook instead of the audio, but you know, if I feel in the mood, I do have that. And then the last two books that I have are from the same author, Stephen Graham Jones. I've not read from Stephen before, and I'm really looking forward to diving into his work. I have The Only Good Indians, and then I have the novella Mapping the Interior. I got the ebook, but then my friend Rose, who I'm buddy reading it with, let me know that there's an audiobook on Spotify. So I think that's going to be the first book that I'm going to be reading for Summerween to kick off this vlog. Happy Summerween, everyone. Happy to be here, and hopefully we get a lot of new favorites out of this reading vlog. Okay, so book 1 of Summerween has been completed, which is Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. This one is a novella, so I won't go in too much detail about what it's about, but we do follow our main character, Junior, who has moved out of the reservation with his mother and his younger brother, and in this new home, one night he suddenly sees the apparition of his father, who has passed away like years before, and he is wondering why he is seeing his father's ghost. And we get to see him as him and his younger brother are kind of coming of age. Because his brother has some sort of disability, he is being bullied, and we get to see him be this older brother who steps up. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. It is quite a very slow burn, very mild horror for me. I honestly was a little bit worried about my experience with Stephen Graham Jones, mostly because of the fact that I think oftentimes when I hear about Stephen Graham Jones, a lot of people talk about just like the narrative style being quite different and maybe not that easy to understand or get a grip of. And for me, honestly, it was very accessible. It could be the fact that it is a novella, and usually with novellas you kind of have to push the narrative along, but writing style wise I really enjoyed it. I think because I was a little apprehensive about it, I didn't really have that much expectation, and I was maybe thinking it would be very complex, very purple prose, and something that was a little hard to digest, but I was very pleasantly surprised. I think that I would give this maybe like a 3.5 to 4 star. It was quite heartfelt. I think at the beginning it felt very slice of life, just getting to know these kids and their mother, and slowly there is that first scene where he sees the ghost of his father, and it just feels very creepy and foreboding, and it just feels like something is watching you as you're reading the rest of this novella and getting to see these kids grow up. For this novella, I really enjoyed the discussions of identity in this one, and also the discussion of grief, of something that you have lost, and also the idea of something that you could have had. I think those moments where our main character Junior was reflecting on his loss felt very heartfelt and felt very tender. And I really enjoyed the way Stephen Graham Jones led us through that part of the narrative and the parts of identity. As someone who's not really read that much from Native American voices, I enjoyed reading about the Native culture and how that impacted our main character, Junior. I don't know what my next book will be. I'm thinking probably an audio because I do still have a few tasks that I need to do after dinner. Maybe switching up the vibes and doing the honeys. I've heard quite a few good things about that one, and hopefully that one is just as much as a hit as Mapping the Interior was. Hi, good morning everyone. Day 2 of Summerween. I'm in the middle of curling my hair and getting ready for the day, and so I thought that I could update you on the second book that I've started, which is The Honeys by Ryan Lasala. This one follows our main character Mars, and I believe his twin sister's name is Chloe, but unfortunately at the very beginning of the book, she dies. Yeah. I was like, oh, it's happening right away. And basically the premise is that because of the death of his sister, he is going to this like creative summer camp thing that she's been enrolled in, and obviously she is no longer in attendance, so he's going to take her place and kind of bob about and kind of semi-investigate the reason for her death, because he believes that this group of girls at the summer camp that call themselves the Honeys are in some shape or form responsible for her death. And so he's going to go to this place that he kind of has been ostracized from because of his gender fluidity. And he's going to be back there and he's going to experience and see what's going on. I yesterday got to about the 5th chapter in the book, and I will say I enjoy the atmosphere and the writing so far. It's only really been an introduction, and we really get to see the dynamic at home for Mars. Because he's gender fluid, there is like a lot of ostracization that he is experiencing, but also because his mother is a very well-known politician in New York, there is that other like lens of like being observed and having to basically be these like very perfect picturesque children for their mother. And I'm interested in seeing how that is going to be discussed within this book. And where I'm at, we've obviously witnessed the death of his sister, and then we are kind of at the viewing for her funeral, and we are introduced to the Honeys, like very basic introduction, but they just seem to be a very interesting group of young women, and he thinks somehow that they have influenced her death. This vibe-wise is quite interesting. It reminds me of like the summer cousin of Don't Let the Forest In. Don't Let the Forest In is very like atmospheric, very fall kind of vibes, and this one, I guess because like he is going to like this summer camp to kind of scope around and see like remnants of his sister's life, that just gives it like a very perfect Summerween vibe. I mean, I haven't really gotten that far into like the summer camp energy, but right away it feels so much more like summer gothic than it does like fall gothic, if that makes sense. And I mean, obviously it should, because it is set in the summertime. And because I'm reading it via audio, I will have to make note about the fact that the audiobook is very dynamic. Within the first chapter, there is this part where he mentions the sound of crickets outside, and all of a sudden, like, crickets started playing in the background. And because I was like reading kind of near my backyard, I immediately was like, what the hell? What's that noise? And then I realized after a while it was the audiobook. And there's another scene at his sister's viewing where he talks about a bee coming alive and like crawling into his sister's ear or something like that, and you can literally hear the buzzing of the bee in like your headphones. I was like, oh, this is very interesting and uncomfortable. I will say, in regards to bug noises, not my favorite, because you can't just stop the bug noises. And there's no indication in regards to the text that tells you when the bug noises end. So, I'm anticipating that the audio with the bug noises is gonna stay for a while. But this is just like a pre-warning. If you don't like bees buzzing and cricket noises at like the first 5 chapters that I've read, maybe read with the book and not the audio. I am going to be reading some more today. I have people coming over later, so I have to clean, and then also I'm baking some matcha toffee cookies. So maybe I'll film some of that, let you see my world famous cookies. I say that. I just recently started baking them, but one of our family friends is in love with it, and every time we see him, he's like, did you bake cookies? The next time I check in, hopefully I'm around the 30 to 40% mark of the honeys, and by then I definitely assume that we are going to be well embroiled into the summer camp. But I'm gonna let you go so that I can go get my things done, and then I will check in with you once I've read some more of the honeys. Okay, so I am doing a 20% check-in, same day. I just changed my shirt. But anyway, I am really liking my experience with the honeys. I've gotten to the point where our main character, Mars, has gone to Aspen, which is that summer camp that I was telling you about, and his twin sister is not named Chloe. I think I was calling her Chloe in the first update. Her name is Caroline, so I do apologize to Caroline. That wasn't your name. Your name is Caroline, not Chloe. Anyway, I do really enjoy the atmosphere and just the overall oppressive feeling of being, I guess, outcast from what is the norm in this area, and feeling just so out of place with Mars. I think that the author really makes that feeling really well known, and I just feel so in tune with Mars as a character, and I'm really interested to see what the dynamics of this summer camp will turn out to be. We kind of get to see a little bit more of the honeys, a smidgen more, and getting to know what other people's opinions of them are. There's this one boy that he meets as he's getting a tour of the summer camp, and he calls them a bunch of bitches, and I'm like, oh, interesting. There was a point in the book where I think Mars is talking about how his sister Caroline described them and how she kind of was not really in tune with them as a group and didn't like them until she was kind of brought into the fold. And it kind of reminded me of the bunnies from Bunny by Mona Awad. His sister describes them as this group of girls who have pet names for each other, and whenever they walk around they hold each other's hands with their pinkies, and I'm like, that is just, it feels so bunny coded to me, and I'm really interested to see what they do as a group. We've only really heard about them, but we have not seen them in action. I think my statement of this being "don't let the forest in summer cousin" stays true. I think the atmospheric writing is really solidifying itself as we are taking place in this summer camp, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I really do think that this was a great pick for Summerween. I'm gonna go continue to read, and I'm baking my cookies right now. So hopefully I can get some good shots of some yummy matcha toffee cookies for you. Good evening, everyone. Today I had a bit of a late start in regards to reading for Summerween. Today's day 3, and the late start is mostly because I work, and when I have busier days, I don't have time to listen to an audiobook because I have to pay attention to what I'm doing. So I did get some reading done, and I'm actually at the 60% mark of the honeys, and I'll be honest with you. I think my interest in the story is waning a little bit. The reason why my interest is waning is for a book that's titled The Honeys. This elusive group of girls called the Honeys have not had that much impact in the story. I think maybe it's my fault for having different expectations, but I think the best example I could give you is Bunny by Mona Awad. And, at the beginning, we are introduced to this very exclusive, mysterious group of girls. But pretty quickly on in that narrative, we get pulled into their orbit with the main character Samantha, and we get to know about their exclusivity so quickly, and we get pulled in, and it becomes this very whirlwind fever dream of a book. And I think I was expecting the honeys to be like that. I thought we would be more involved and know more about these girls at the 60% mark. I'm still unsure what the main impact they're going to have on this storyline. I mean, from the synopsis, our main character Mars goes to this summer camp to kind of connect with his twin sister, but then also he believes that this group, the Honeys, has some sort of impact on her death. And I just feel like I've been at a summer camp and I'm not fully connected with his dead twin sister, and I don't know anything about the Honeys. And I just think at this point, it feels so much more of a coming of age, very slow paced, almost lazy river kind of story, where you're just wading in the water and the vibes are all there and things are happening, but very slowly they're happening. But I don't know if all the slow pacing is going to build into something drastic. There are bits and pieces of the story that I think have given it a eerie, creepy vibe, but overall I just feel like I'm at a summer camp. And I think the most horrific thing is he, unfortunately, our main character Mars is being bullied for being very outspokenly queer, but other than that, it's kind of I'm not really horrified. I'm just wondering and waiting with bated breath to see how the author ends this book, and if the horror is shocking, if it's exciting for me. We'll see. But I know tomorrow I will definitely finish The Honeys, and I will let you know my complete thoughts and opinions on that. Because I'm really in the mood for horror, though, I think the next book that I'm going to start is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I heard that one is quite creepy and gory, so that could be a good choice. Cross your fingers for me for the gore, because I'm not really a gore girl when it comes to horror, but I do want to be a little bit scared, to be honest. And right now, The Honeys is just a vibe. I'm just floating in the pool, hanging out with these kids, seeing, what the hell they want to do next, which it really just feels like they want to hang out in the pool too and do nothing. So we'll see how it goes. I will see you tomorrow for day 4 of Summerween. and hopefully we really pick up the vibes from there. Happy day 4 of Summerween. I am here to give you an update on The Honeys by Ryan Lasala. I have completed it, and I'm kind of back and forth in regards to whether I want to give this a 3-star or something maybe a little bit lower, if I'm being honest. I just think that this book did not work for me, and one of my biggest issues with it is the pacing. And, I don't know if this is indicative of the age range of it, but there were certain topics that were brought up around like the 70 to 80% mark, which I thought was kind of just glossed over and glazed over a little bit too much for me. And like, I do understand with YA, there are certain graphic things that we cannot speak about as in detail as you could if it were an adult novel. But I think certain things just were brought up and it was like, here's a thing. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. I'm going to say what it is, and I'll put a spoiler tag up here for you, just in case that's something you don't want to know about regarding the plot. But spoilers are happening now, and then once the spoiler tag is gone, I will stop talking about it. But I'm pretty sure at like the 80% mark, there is a perspective switch with our main character. He kind of is connected to some of the other young women in the Honeys group, and we basically learn that one of these camp counselors was assaulted, and it just felt like here is a very sad, traumatic moment, and then we kind of just move on from the moment, and I think that scene was just glazed over a little bit too much for me. And, it wasn't spoken about in detail. And that's what I was talking about with YA. Like, I do understand that you don't need to put in the detail, or you can't put in the detail in regards to that. And I don't think it was necessary to have it detailed to begin with. But I think it is necessary to kind of, take a step back and talk about that traumatic moment. And it just felt like, here's the thing that happened to her. It's really sad. And like, that's how we as a group found her and supported her. And that's about it. Like, it feels like the main character Mars, didn't really think about it or like discuss it. And there was nothing much that went on. I kind of felt like that could have been a topic that was brought up because a lot of the young boys that Mars is surrounded by really demean these group of girls. They call them like terrible things and they sexualize them. And so I'm not necessarily surprised that that topic was brought up. I'm just more so left being like, oh, but why was it brought up? Because we aren't really discussing that. And it kind of was like, okay, well, this is a thing that happened. And that's it for my spoiler. But I just think that there were a lot of good and interesting topics that were being brought up in this, but the way that it was presented within the story, it left me wanting more. Like, there were a lot of elements of grief. Obviously, our main character lost his sister at the very beginning and like witnessed her death. That's very sad, and there's a lot of grief that is being suppressed and that Mars is working through. But I feel like that was just like, here's a thing, and like, let's not deeper explore that grief. And then there's also the discussions of Mars being genderqueer. And while I can't speak on the representation myself, as I am not somebody who is genderqueer, I just feel like I was left wanting more of a more complex discussion on that. It just felt a little bit juvenile to me in the way that this camp that Mars is at is very strict on gender norms, and the way his other camp mates react to his gender queerness it doesn't feel like a reaction that would come from like an older teen, especially in a modern day setting, because although we don't get a specific time frame given to us, I can tell that this is a very contemporary story. And so for some of these young men to be so childish and immature about their bullying didn't make any sense to me. Like, yeah, I do understand that there are queer people who get bullied. Like, I know that. And it just felt so like young the way that they were bullying him for being queer. Like, it didn't feel something that I think someone of that age would say given their prejudice. Like, it just felt so young in regards to Wing. Not that I think that this character should be terribly bullied, but that kind of framing of the prejudice within this summer camp just didn't feel very well realized to me. Again, not that I want this kid to be bullied, right? But it's just like, I just didn't feel like they were worth Mars's time. And I don't think any bully is worth anybody's time, but there's certain times where somebody is facing oppression and you're like, damn, we really need to get you out of here. And this is an unsafe space. I'm like, these guys are just losers. And that's about it. Like, I didn't feel any threat in regards to their bullying and oppression of Mars. And honestly, it didn't seem like Mars cared that much either. Like, he was just rubbing it in their face. Like, yeah, I'm queer, so suck it. Who cares? But you know, that's how I feel. With YA, I think sometimes there are a lot of interesting thematics that I wish that we could just dwindle down to like maybe 2 or 3 and really get in depth with, versus the way that this book, for me, it felt like so many of these interesting topics and themes were tacked on to the last 30% of the book, and then we were like really rushing through, and then there were all these reveals, and suddenly we're like avalanching the plot points, the reveal points, and I just felt like the pacing was so off for me. But yeah, that's it for the honeys. I am going to get dinner ready and everything, and I think tonight, post dinner, I'm gonna go ahead and start The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 5 of Summerween. Guess who didn't read anything yesterday after my last check in? Me, the person sitting right in front of you. To be frank and to be honest, recently I've been quite stressed out, and it's really been affecting me wanting to read in general. I think I've alluded to it in multiple videos that I've just not been in a reading mood. And the past week, the Big Beautiful Bill passed, and honestly, that's caused a lot of stress. Not because it just affects me, but it affects the entire community in the entire United States, and the negative impact of that all has just really been weighing on me mentally. And I think honestly, because of all of that stress, it's been hard for me to want to even participate in a hobby that brings me joy. And, you know, I was talking to my therapist the other day, and she was like, "Oh, so like, what have you been reading?" Since, you know, she knows that I am a reader and that that is a hobby that brings me a lot of joy. And I told her, I was like, actually, I've not really been reading. And she was like, "Excuse me? That's not okay." And so my homework for this week actually was to read. And, you know, after I read The Honeys and I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling in the mood, I remembered my therapist telling me that I have to engage in my hobby this week, and I have to find time to take care of my mental well being. And so, this is a reminder from me to you, as one stressed, anxious gal, to the potentially stressed and anxious audience watching this. Unclench your jaw, you know, roll those shoulders back, relax, untense. Go touch some grass, breathe in some fresh air, let the sunlight hit your skin, you know, and pick up a hobby. It doesn't have to be reading, but any hobby that brings you joy. Engage in that hobby for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. I know that there is the fine line between like balancing your mental health and well-being and also staying informed. But I think as a community member, when you are burnt out and exhausted and have no fumes left, you aren't benefiting the community by not taking care of yourself mentally. So I think this is a great reminder for all of us and for myself as well that it's okay to engage in hobbies and it's okay to take a step back and take care of yourself. All that to say, I have indeed started The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and this book, the synopsis is quite small, but we're basically following a group of native boys, or native men actually, but this event that happened when they were younger is coming back to haunt them, I believe 10 years later. We are not privy to what that is, but we are finding out what that is. And it's been a slow setup getting to know like our main character and kind of him backtracking to what led him to where he is today. And I think where I paused into the audiobook, we are going to find out what happened 10 years ago that has been haunting him. I've heard that this book becomes quite gory. There was one scene with his pet dog. Our main character, his name is Lewis. His pet dog, something happened to his pet dog, and that was quite scary, quite gruesome, to be honest, but it wasn't incredibly intense. But from what I've heard from people who talk about The Only Good Indians, that there is quite a bit of gore in this. And so I feel like the reveal of what happened to him and his group of friends back then that I'm about to read is probably going to kick in with the gore. And am I excited to read it? No, not really. But am I excited to feel something? Definitely. Oh Lord. It's really come to this that horror has become a comfort genre for me. Who would have thought? Jenny from 5 years ago would have not thought this at all. But anyway, I'm going to get going now. I'm going to continue reading the book. I'm having a great time. Stephen Graham Jones' writing just sits really well with me. I can't really describe his writing. It's unlike anything that I've ever experienced before, but I'm really enjoying it. And I am hoping that this book scares the shit out of me, honestly. I hope that this one haunts me and I think about it months and months down the line. That is my hope for this book. And thus far, I'm really enjoying it. So we'll see how it goes and I'll update you, I think, when I hit the 50% mark. Good evening, everyone. I know I did say that I was going to do a check-in at the 50% mark, but before I went to bed, I wanted to do just a quick check-in because I'm at a little bit over the 30% mark, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm really enjoying my read of this. I had high expectations for, and I knew that a lot of people that I trust, opinion-wise in regards to horror, really enjoyed this one. So I was trying to keep my expectations a little low, but honestly, if I'm being really honest with you, I'm expecting this to be a 5-star. And at this point, I'm really feeling those vibes. There's just something different and unique about Stephen Graham Jones' writing style that I don't think I can put into words at this moment. It is just such a unique feeling being in this story and in this horror. I felt the same way about Mapping the Interior, where there is just this little inkling of a reveal that has been thread through the story that just feels so eerie and so creepy and so ominous. Like you feel like something is watching you through the pages as you read. And I think as a horror, and in this one specifically, it almost feels a little bit like an unraveling of a mystery. And so to have that, like, somebody is watching me or something is watching me be so prevalent in the story is just so masterfully done. And I am enjoying the way I feel so uneasy. And I think the way even at the point that I did the check-in at 20%, I hadn't known what happened 10 years ago. And the reveal of that story, oh, it just made me feel so uneasy. I had chills down my spine. And then when the full story of what happened 10 years ago was revealed, I was like, Lewis, buddy, I don't think anything positive is going to happen in the rest of the story for you. I am just so on the edge of my seat, sitting here trying to read and figure out what the mystery is. It's not like this big, huge, like, he's not doing like a murder mystery investigation or anything, but there's something happening to him, and he is just trying to see and discover why it's happening, and getting to go along for the ride for this character who knows there's something that is off and that there's something is wrong with, like, his surroundings, but he doesn't know the full picture or the full answer to it. Oh, oh my gosh. What a way to tell a story, honestly. I am really enjoying it, and I just wanted to do the check-in and let you know that I am having a good time. I'm so glad I am because, as we talked about in the last check-in, I've just not been feeling like fully in the mood with reading and just like things that I enjoy with life, and like getting to allow myself to have this moment of escapism and have the story like really pull me in and get me invested is such a great feeling. And I can't wait to see what the further reveals are. This is feeling like a much more slow burn horror, but just those little itty bitty bits of gore that have happened, I'm just like, oh, I cannot imagine what the avalanche of this story will be like. Happy day 6 of Summerween, everyone. I have my 50% check-in for The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I paused at a pretty grotesque scene and, thought that maybe I shouldn't read any more of this before bed. Unfortunately, I didn't have that great of a night's sleep. Not because of the Stephen Graham Jones book, mostly because I just haven't been sleeping well the past like week or two. But that's beside the point. I had a pretty chill work day, so as I was working, I was able to listen to my audiobook, and that grotesque scene was pretty wild, pretty detailed. The events that happened after that scene, oh my god. I don't even know. Like, I felt like I was watching that scene in slow motion. And I was like, nothing positive, nothing good is gonna come of this. And it's like watching a Jenga tower fall. You know it's gonna fall. You know that there's nothing you can do to stop it, but you just have this gut feeling and this reflex to attempt to catch the blocks, but they all just fall and scatter everywhere. And I was watching this scene and being like, we saw it coming and we couldn't stop it, but you really wish that you could stop it. Oh my god. And it was grotesque. It was vivid. I felt panicked. I'm feeling so many emotions reading this book, and I am just happy that I am reading something that is evoking so much feeling from me. But at the same time, I'm like, this scene is going to live up here for a long time. And that's not even the end of the story. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. If you've read The Only Good Indians, I'm sure you know what scene I'm talking about. Oh my gosh. Anyway, at the 50% mark, there is a bit of a perspective switch, and also in writing style, there was a chapter that kind of changed to a second person point of view. And the most recent chapter that I read, there's this omniscient voice that is telling us this story, and then there was a couple paragraphs that had that second person point of view, And I'm wondering if this is what people are talking about in regards to the narrative and story structure style that can be a little bit confusing with Stephen Graham Jones' writing. I'm not entirely sure, as the people that I've heard like that perspective from. I can't remember specifically who those reviewers were, but I'm just here to say, in my perspective, it's not that confusing of storytelling. It could be because I am tandem reading with the ebook and the audiobook, and so maybe I am grasping the storytelling a little bit easier because I have someone who is telling me the story as I'm reading along. It usually is really helpful for me when I have a more complex writing style that I'm attempting to consume. But at the 50% mark, I think all my feelings that I had said yesterday have stayed the same. I'm really enjoying this reading experience and the story, the way these people's lives are just unraveling, and sitting here and watching it unravel and being like, I just know crazier shit is about to happen. And, you just have to watch it. There's nothing you can do besides just witnessing. And the things that I have witnessed, Lord. Great, great storytelling. Very shocking, very visceral. And I have to, give a standing ovation to Stephen Graham Jones for that. And I'm just sure that something more wild is coming up. Hopefully, I can start one more book by the end of this reading week. I don't know what the book I want to read after this one is because I don't know. I'm just really enjoying this one and I don't want to think too far ahead. I want to stay pretty present with this story. But I do have quite a few books out from my library, so we can go through that list, and if nothing is suiting my fancy, maybe we'll go back to the drawing board. Maybe we'll ask a friend for a recommendation. Before I call it a night for day 6 of Summerween, I wanted to let you know that I have finished The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And what a fantastic book. Honestly, I am just so impressed, so enthralled, so enamored with this story. I think it was the right amount of horrific, the right amount of grotesque, with these threads of like generational trauma, culture, of revenge, of regret, of this haunting, and just this feeling overall of like this oppressive force watching and stalking you throughout this entire novel. Oh, where to begin? I feel like, because I am not Native American myself, I think that there could have been cultural things and references that I am not privy to and that might have gone over my head. I'm sure of it. But I don't think that this was a story, at least for me, it wasn't a story that was so like unreachable. Like, I don't think it took that long for me to get into it. And there weren't things that were so like, oh, I feel so out of the circle that I couldn't grasp onto or understand. And I don't know, it was just such a beautifully haunting story, and getting to see the perspectives of these young men when this like horrific event happens 10 years ago, and seeing how that impacts their life now and how that impacts the next generation of young people that grow up within the reservation, and just the impacts and the effects of like the suppression of said trauma can have on your life in such a negative way. Wow. The way Stephen Graham Jones builds this multi layered horror story. We get to see like the microaggressions that our characters face, and we get to see how these traumatic things have impacted their very personal relationship and also their internal relationship with themselves and their culture. I think that it was such a good book, honestly. Like, my God. Brilliant, brilliant work. You know that Lady Gaga meme where she's like, show stopping, incredible, never been done before, not afraid to reference or not reference. Like, that's how I feel right now. And I'm like, Stephen Graham Jones. I'm sure that he knows that he's a brilliant author. He doesn't need some rando like me on the internet telling him that, but like, I think I'm gonna give this a 5 star. I will say, I do think that the like ending bit there was a little bit long-winded, a smidgen, and there could have been a reason why Stephen Graham Jones decided to drag out that certain sequence at the end there. But other than that, it was just so brilliantly done. And that haunting aspect, that feeling of like, it almost felt like a revenge plot in it, in a sort of sense. And this is just such a difficult book for me to sum up because I don't want to really say what the inciting event is from 10 years ago, but just that setup in and of itself was quite horrific. But getting to see how that pans out and the sort of almost feels like revenge story that comes about in it. Oh my God. What a brilliant book, really. Yeah, amazing. The more that I talk about it, I'm like, this is a 5 star. What was I thinking? Being like, I'm gonna sleep on it and see what I want to rate it. It's a 5 star. I don't need to sleep on this. I do need to sleep though, but I don't need to sleep on my opinion. But I will be thinking about this book as I cozy up and get ready to go to bed. But I'll see you tomorrow morning. Goodbye, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 7 of Summerween. This week, honestly, has felt so long in regards to like work and stuff. And I'm just glad that I have like this vlog and just like reading horror books to look forward to this whole week. That's really like boosted my mood, honestly. I've just been thinking about The Only Good Indians all day, been chatting to all my friends about it. I am planning to maybe go to Barnes tomorrow and pick up a copy for myself. I have quite a few things that I need to do tomorrow. I have a dentist appointment and just like bits and bobs that I need to do. And so maybe I'll treat myself and go to the bookstore. That sounds like a plan. But because I've just been thinking about Only Good Indians all day today, I had a later start in regards to reading What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. And that book is a novella. The audio is 5 hours, but I don't listen at one time speed. I listen a little bit quicker than that. So it'll be a pretty quick read. I have read 2 chapters so far, and the basic premise is that our main character, Alex, I believe their name is, they get a letter from their friend Madeline, and the letter talks about Madeline's declining health. So Alex is like, I'm gonna go bop over to their house and see what's going on. Alex knows Madeline, but I think also knows Madeline's brother because of the army, because they like served together or whatever. And so Alex is going over there to go check it out. And the opening scene, we are met with this very decrepit, rundown home and like all these mushroom spores everywhere. I think that's the right term, spores. And it just seems so vibey and so atmospheric. My camera very rudely decided to die on me, and so I was clearly cut off in the last clip. But basically, all I was going to say is that there are some sprints that I think I am going to join later tonight, and hopefully, I can finish reading What Moves the Dead then. Quite a short read, and I hope that I really enjoy this one. The writing from the first 2 chapters is quite atmospheric, and I can tell why people really enjoy T. Kingfisher's writing, and I know that their whole backlist is very diverse in regards to genre. So I'm really interested to see how this more horror leaning book goes for me. And hopefully, this one is a, 4 to 5 star read. That's all a girl could ask for. I'm here to close out the vlog for Summerween, and I have completed What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I decided to kind of cut it at that because honestly, my mind has just been thinking about The Only Good Indians since I finished reading it, and I thought, I don't think that would be super fair for me to delve into new stories and continue just to think about that one. So I did complete What Moves the Dead because I had started it yesterday, so I went ahead and finished that one. And I will say I do enjoy the vibes and the atmosphere, and I'm really interested to see T. Kingfisher's writing in other genres that they've done before. I ended up giving it a 3.5 star. Due to it being a novella, obviously I don't want to say too much about it. The star of the show in regards to that novella is the writing style, is the atmosphere. There was a very interesting mystery going on, and there were elements that were very creepy, but I think sometimes for me, novellas don't fully hit, and maybe that is because I'm the type of reader who wants to just be in the story for a little bit longer and get to be with the characters for a little bit longer. I do know that this has a second book with the horse on the cover. Think What Feasts at Night or something. I'll put the cover on here for you. But yeah, I think a 3.5 is a good rating for a novella. I had a good time, atmospheric wise, fantastic, and I would highly recommend that you pick it up if you do want a more creepy gothic style. I think sometimes for me, the way gothic horrors end could be a hit or a miss, and this one was kind of middle of the road for me. I definitely enjoyed the process of getting to the end versus like the conclusion of everything. I felt like, yeah, I just wanted to be within the mystery and within the creepiness a little bit longer. Probably seen in my B-roll, I did go to Barnes & Noble after I went to the dentist today, and I decided to treat myself to some books, and so I'll show you a little bit of a haul. I got 3 books. Book 1 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I read this in high school, and it's been quite a while since I've read it. And I just want to reread and annotate and like get back into the story. I think I'll glean more now that I'm older. I did read it when I was a junior, and I remembered really enjoying this, but it's been so long since I've read this book that almost every detail has gone out of my brain, so I'd like to revisit that. And I got the Penguin Classics version. The second book, and really the reason why I went to Barnes, was to get The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, because this is a 5 star, and I've just had the most intense brain rot when it comes to reading. I don't think I've been this enthralled by a book in several months now. Like, I have had 5 star reads, but I don't think it's encompassed my mind the way that The Only Good Indians has. And when I checked this book out, actually, the bookseller who worked the cash register loves Stephen Graham Jones, and they said that this book was probably their favorite book of the year that they read it, and most likely is like a favorite of all time, like top 5 read for them. And so they like had called somebody to back them up at the cash register so they could just chat about this book with me, and getting to see their enthusiasm as they spoke about this book and then just other Stephen Graham Jones books in general. It was just such a fun way to connect with somebody that like is a complete stranger. The book that I was highly recommended because of The Only Good Indians was actually Mongrels. This one was the only copy left at my Barnes, so I saw it as a sign. I swooped in, I picked it up, and I decided to get this one. And then this one will be the next one I read after I was a teenage slasher. But that is all for my week of Summerween. We got 4 books read, we got 3 books hauled, and I think this was quite a successful reading week. Fantastic that I got a 5-star read out of this week. I want to know, did you participate in Summerween? Let me know what books that you ended up reading. I feel like this is going to be a really long one, so I'll let you go here. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!